There. Yay!
Welcome to Midwives Uncut.
I'm going to get the slate. I'm going to get it.
I want that. I really want that. Welcome. This is the VBAC episode of Midwives Uncut with your hosts, Sandy and Galena. And hopefully we won't get a lot of background noise. Kitchen stuff can always be done later when there's a Zoom going on. Anyway, so today we wanted to touch on VBACing. If you guys don't know what a VBAC is, it is a vaginal birth after a cesarean. Something I am extremely passionate about, partly because I'm a VBAC, but also it's just in midwives' nature to make sure women have all of their options available. And for a long time, it has been told that once a C-section, always a C-section. And that is just not true. So we are here today to talk about why that's not true and what's happened in our history to help encourage women to have VBACs. So
we had a few of our followers that wanted to know more. We've been contacted. Well, we're contacted all the time. Like, oh, do you guys do VBACs? And one of the things is, and we'll talk about the difference, but unfortunately in the state of Florida, we're not allowed to do VBACs in a birthing center. That is just the law. However, moms are allowed to attempt a home birth. So, and knowing these little details are really important when you're trying to plan your VBAC and knowing what steps you need to take.
Right. And so a little history. Initially, when C-sections first began, the incision type was called a classical incision. And that meant that the provider would cut straight up when they were doing the opening to try to get baby out. And that showed a very higher, well, not very higher, first of all, that's not a sentence, much higher chance of a uterine rupture with that type of incision. So to encourage, I believe it was ACA or ACOG, maybe it was ACOG. ACOG wanted to encourage women to do vaginal births because they know the benefits of it. And so they started researching different types of incisions, and then they developed what's commonly used today, which is the transverse style, which is the little bikini cut, as some people call it. Very small, barely can see it literally right above your hairline. So people often, once it's healed, they don't even know that there's a scar there. So that type of incision really dramatically lowered the uterine rupture rate to the point where they felt comfortable and wanted women to go ahead and do what's called a TOLAC, a trial of labor after a cesarean, in hopes of having a successful VBAC at that point.
There was a bunch of studies going on too at that time, where they were allowing people, it was called the VBAC study, and they were allowing people to attempt this. And then they had to send in their stats, and they had to send in all of the data from what happened. And so,
yeah. And that was good. And then what happened as years went by, hospital policies made by lawyers made it extremely difficult for obstetricians to attempt to do a VBAC for a woman, because they had certain, like in each hospital, policies are different and still are, that require the OB or the nurse midwife, because those are the ones that usually work at hospitals, to be there the entire time a woman is laboring. Or like, I think one policy was they had to have an anesthesiologist on premises. Like whatever it was really difficult for an OB. And for example, let's say Monday morning when they have a full day of clinic, to be able to have whatever the requirements were, it was difficult for them to have it there. And what started happening was OBs would just say, we can't do VBACs. We can't
Well,
do
I
that.
know that also some hospitals required them to carry a separate type of insurance. And then, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, those insurance numbers were like astronomical. It was
It's
like,
very high because
yeah.
this midwife carries that VBAC malpractice and I pay extra for it.
Yeah.
So it's I get it. It's hard, but you know, our job is to serve women, and you know, that's adjust your prices accordingly if that's the case. I don't
Right?
know what to say. And that's actually what's happened now. A lot of providers, well, the few providers who I know in our area that actually offer a VBAC, one of them I know for sure has a fee for it, and rightly so. It requires more of her time, attention, insurance, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order for her to comfortably give herself to that VBAC, she has that fee so she can do so. And she is flooded with people.
Yeah, she's flooded because she's one of the only ones that does it like that. It also guarantees her to be at birth, because that's another thing that a lot of people may not realize or understand when they're looking for a provider. Like if you decide to look for a provider in the hospital, even if you find a VBAC friendly doctor, are his partners or her partners friendly for VBACs? Because I know that there was an OB down south that was, but then let's say he wasn't available. His partners were not VBAC friendly.
They would not do it.
They won't do it. And
so now it's like you look like an idiot, really, looking to go there and do it. And so often people would look for midwives to do it because we don't have those restrictions. We have our own, like if we have things put in place. And then of course we have our law that we follow, but the law allows us to take care of a woman as long as they've had, so they're required to have a VBAC consult. And again, this is only for, in our area, Florida, out of hospital home birth clients can do a VBAC.
And let's explain what that consult is, because I think that there's some confusion on what that is.
Right. So out of hospital Florida home birth people can attempt to do a VBAC, and the two things that they need are a copy of the op report, and it doesn't matter how, like if you've had 2 C-sections, 1 C-section, you need a copy of both reports because each incision could be done differently.
Right.
And so that the consulting physician needs to review that so that they're properly educating you. And so the consult is your opportunity to sit down with the surgeon, whether it's the OB or a nurse midwife can also do it as well, because they typically work under protocols of an OB. And they'll go over what are the risks associated with that, specifically to your type of surgery that you had. So that's why they have to look at the report. So they'll say, okay, the risks associated with yours are this many chances of, something happening, and this is the chances of your good outcome, good versus bad. And then you are supposed to take that information and they're supposed to send it to the midwife, if the midwife is your lead caretaker. And then the midwife will review the risks, and if the midwife is comfortable and the client is comfortable, then everybody moves forward with doing the VBAC. A consult is not a yes or no. It is an educational meeting with the provider of what the risks are. I don't care if it says your risks are 90% chance that you're going to die. It's not a yes or a no, which obviously at that point you'd be like, okay, no, thank you. It's them informing you. And I think that is what you were talking about, Sandy, where people get confused. Because we've had people come to us and say, oh, well, my doctor told me I can't do it. Well, no, your doctor told you this information, and then you have concluded that you aren't going to take that risk.
Well, I've seen some consults where it says you can attempt, like the verbiage is always different, and it really just depends on the doctor too. Right. But they're basically, they weigh out your options, like Selena said, and they basically tell you, okay, well, you have the choice now to attempt a VBAC.
Mm-hmm. Right, because nobody knows what's going to happen.
Right.
It's just trial of labor, but that's your fair way of knowing you can do it or not. If I don't give you the opportunity,
We've had lots of successful VBACs.
Oh yeah, I would say since the starting of my home birth practice 9 years ago, I have done a handful of VBACs each year. So I would say that adds up to maybe, I don't know, 50. I don't know.
Well, you're a successful VBAC too.
I'm a successful VBAC. My birth history is of single vaginal, twin cesarean, and then a single vaginal VBAC. So I knew my body could do it. I really had no fear at all with my VBAC because I actually was very surprised I had a C-section with my twins. And it was mutually agreed on at that point. But I remember from the beginning of time with the doctor, it was, he said, just prepare for a C-section just in case. And he was totally vaginal friendly. But I said, well, you prepare for a vaginal birth. And this was every meeting, we would say that to each other. Okay, well, just prepare for a C-section. Okay, you just prepare for a vaginal. My kids come out of my vagina. That's what I used to tell them. And they proved me wrong, but that's okay. And then I had my VBAC with my son. So, and it was great. I had no complications in terms of risk factors associated with the cesarean. So, and I was also very healthy. That's one thing. Like we tell our VBAC moms, you need to be very healthy. You need to make sure you're taking care of yourself. You're doing all these things to really help ensure a successful VBAC. You don't just leave it to fate. You got to take the power and start doing things to have a good VBAC.
That's in general for all birth.
True.
You know, you want a nice, happy, smooth birth. You've got to have a good, healthy pregnancy. If you are not eating healthy, you're, eating like
dehydrated
every night for dinner, you are going to have a lot of extra fats that you don't need, and it's going to make it very difficult for the baby to come down nice and easy because of that. Not only that, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to be, just not feeling good and healthy. Labor is like a marathon, and marathon runners are training for months, sometimes a year before they go on the big run. And they are eating a certain way of diet, a certain way every day.
That's
They're
true.
drinking everything. And they're sticking to that very vigorous schedule. And I tell moms this all the time. I'm like, it's the same thing. You are preparing for your big day.
Your uterus, first of all, is a muscle. So as they're eating right to strengthen their muscle, and they're working it out to strengthen their muscle, it's the same thing that you need to do. If you don't feed your muscle and fuel it and get it ready for the big day, it's not going to function as good as if you did. And so that's what we try to explain to people is the muscle, you got to help strengthen it and make it work good. And then it will. So Sandy and I always talk about, and then we have like 30-minute things. So I am going to share my screen because we wanted to share with you before we forget. A few years ago, we had done a really great, we've done a few things, right, associated with VBACs. One was we had a woman who owns I don't know if it's an
organization.
I guess it's an organization. It's her company that promotes VBAC facts. So her website is vbacfacts.org. Her name is Jen Campbell. You can learn about her and her journey into this on her website. But we had her come and do a speaker.
Wait, it's vbacfacts.com. I wanted to make sure.
Oh.
I'll put the links in the description so that everyone has a way of finding it.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. You know what? If you punch in org, it actually goes to .com because that's what I had done. But anyway, I'll get the right one. We'll show it to you as well. But she is like a wealth of knowledge, and she is constantly updating and addressing fears and addressing false information and making sure you have the right information. I absolutely love her website. I absolutely love her. I think she's so knowledgeable. So she had come and done a workshop, and all the midwives in the area, a lot of doulas, even a few OBs and nurses had come to the workshop because we also had like speakers that talked about their policies with their hospitals and such so that we could really give a well-rounded workshop. It was awesome. And then we hosted another VBAC workshop at our birthing center, Natural Birth Works in Margate. And that was real. We had a big turnout. I think we had like 20 moms.
We did, yeah.
That was big. For our little space, that was big.
And that was one of the most VBAC friendly OBs that's in South Florida.
Right. She's always promoting VBACs, and she's probably the only person I have seen give it 100% to their moms. And so I created like a slideshow for that. And a lot of the facts I used was from Jen Campbell, VBAC Facts website, because she's just so good. And so let's take a look. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can get an idea of what we're talking about. Share. Is it sharing? Okay, there we go. So this is Jen Campbell, and this is her website. And it is just totally loaded. I still love this woman. She's so smart. So here's a little bit of her website. I actually kind of delved deep into a few of her workshops that she has, and there's like membership things and stuff. So I had signed up for a few, so I had gotten a few things sent over, and I have them laminated in my prenatal room for women who are wanting to do VBACs, and it just gives you a quick information about these things, the top 5 uterine rupture myths and 5 secrets to planning a VBAC. So she's great, and she's just been all over the place. And the reason why is because this woman checks, triple checks, quadruple checks her info before spewing it, which lately people just love to say the word fact and not followed by fact. So I love it. Check it out. Another thing that we had done, like I said, was our slideshow for our presentation at our birthing center that we did. And some of the things that we talked about that I thought were important was, making sure people know what a VBAC is, knowing the option is there. I'm telling you, so many people, I didn't think I could do this because I had a prior C-section. And I'm like, oh my God, what year is this? I can't believe people still think that. You're still on mute, Sandy. You're on mute.
That's because so many people are still being told the same thing, even by doctors and hospitals.
Yeah.
They're being told by, professional people that they just can't do it.
Mm-hmm. And then this is some choices that we got. Why choose a VBAC? So you got the planned VBAC versus your elected repeat cesarean, which is an option. Some women don't want to VBAC, and that's okay as long as, like she said, and like we always say, as long as you're making an educated decision, we're going to support whatever decision you make. Understanding the risks and benefits will help you decide. And this is where it gets tricky. You need to make sure you get your source of information from a good source, an accurate, studied source. So ACOG states both planned and repeat cesareans have risks. It's true. And so you need to make sure that you speak to somebody who can fairly provide you the risks associated with both, because it's so easy to say, oh, just get a repeat cesarean because it's easy for the provider. But have you discussed the risks associated with that? Have you discussed how it then increases, if you did decide third baby, it increases your uterine rupture by a small percentage? Have you discussed what can happen during a major abdominal surgery? So these are things that are making sure you're giving the information for both options. Consult. Accurate statistics are provided without exaggerating or minimizing. It's true. I remember when I was in on a consult once, it was a little harsh, some of the stuff. But then when the doctor got to the positive, he was just as harsh. So I felt like it was a really fair consult, which you don't see very often. Take into account the family size. This is true. How many children are you planning on having? If you got a C-section with your first one, and you plan on having 5 kids, an elective repeat might not be your best choice. Mm-hmm. So informing the woman of the increased risk associated with the increased C-sections.
And that's important too, because is it correct? Once you reach 5 C-sections, then they highly recommend that you do not continue having children.
I thought it was 4.
Oh, okay. I thought it's either 4 or 5. So if you're planning on having a big family, and we know some moms end up having like 6, 7, that's their plan. It is just not ideal to continue having C-sections, because then at a certain point, you won't be able to continue. The doctor will highly recommend that you stop having children.
Right. So I think the top 2 risks, I know for our presentation, this is what we felt were the most that people were worried about, was the uterine rupture and the placenta accreta. And then we go into the whole thing about stats on the chances of and see here, 1 C-section, what's your chance? 2 C-sections,
0.24. Make sure they understand. 0.24, not 24%.
This is accreta. I'm sorry. This is accreta.
Right,
rupture rate occurs I had it there. But anyway, and here are some of the benefits. Like, why would you even do that? A lot of people are like, why would I bother? Well, obviously you want to avoid major surgery, lowering your chances of a hemorrhage, infection, bladder or bowel injuries, a hysterectomy. It's a way shorter recovery when you have a vaginal baby than a C-section, and then increase the odds for future baby. And the benefits to the baby. Let's not forget about the baby as well. The baby passing through the vaginal canal, receiving all of the hormones that are released during the labor time.
Also the microbiome.
And the microbiome. I know a lot of people, a lot of hospitals are implementing, I forget what it's called, where if they have to have a C-section, they put a swab in the woman's vagina during the section, and then they take it out and wipe the baby so that the baby can get all of the healthy organisms that would have been picked up when passing through the vaginal canal. They get it so that they can their immune system can start building up good and bad, learning good bacteria, bad bacteria. And so it's great, but you don't find that. I don't think it's in the US right now.
Actually, no, I think there was only one hospital that I knew was doing it. It was up in the Northeast. And there was only like 1 or 2 doctors that decided to do it, because they realized that the evidence-based research shows the benefits of baby being exposed to those good and bad bacteria. And it really helps them, not just short-term, long-term, over their whole life, of strengthening their immune system and really allowing them to build on those germs, as opposed to being in a sterile environment where they don't know how to choose between good and bad.
Exactly. I like this common myths thing where people are told, well, if your baby is big, if you go to 42 weeks, if you don't know if you have a vertical scar, twins is a big one here in Florida. They're like, oh, twins, VBAC, not going to happen. But yet you have the American Colleges of Obstetrics and Gynecology saying these are factors that shouldn't prevent a woman from attempting a VBAC. So why do we have providers and then organizations that we look up to conflicting with what they're giving our women? Right. So it's a problem.
So that brings me to a very important point. This is why, and I feel like you would agree with me, Galina, this is why we do these things, so that we can educate our moms and our families, so that they can feel empowered and educated enough to do their own research and get the information that's evidence-based, so that then they can go and educate their provider. Because I've had plenty of moms say, oh, I got to show this to my doctor, or I have to show, and that's the point. We want you to know that you have resources, you have information out there, use it.
Yeah, I agree. This was some stuff we wrote down to help increase your odds of a successful VBAC, whether it's in the hospital or out of the hospital. And again, we talk about nutrition, not, hopefully not too much intervention, because that doesn't help. Mm-hmm. And then doing exercises that are geared toward the good position of the baby, because I feel like a lot of women end up having to get a C-section because the baby's in a funny position and it wouldn't progress in labor, and so then they just give you a C-section. Doulas are great. Why out of the hospital? And that's something to think about. Where do you feel better attempting your VBAC? Do you feel safer in a hospital? If so, find out your doctor's VBAC success rate, if that's the case, because often women get promised a VBAC, and then when it's labor time, they're actually not really given a good opportunity to have a VBAC. They're not given all of these things to help improve their success rate of that. So find out why out of a hospital. Why do you want to do, or do you feel safer with the midwife who has the training? And then of course, if there is a situation presenting, they transfer you to a hospital. And then it just goes into it's a lot of studies that we did for this thing. And I just thought it was really great because I felt like it was empowering so many women. And I love it when I'm part of a Facebook group about VBACs, and when you see their stories and how they're so happy and proud of themselves, and they should be. And that's not just a VBAC. I see women who do natural births and they're like, I did it, no drugs, no nothing. And they're so proud of themselves because it's freaking hard ass work.
It is.
And you should be very, and that doesn't take away from somebody who, needed to go to a hospital. Yeah, that's a hard ass decision to make too when you're in labor. So I say yay to all, but of course you're not going to take away just because there are people who've gotten transferred and didn't get it. You're certainly not going to take away from the success from those who did get it. Good. They should be proud. Every woman should be proud of themselves. Freaking hard job.
It is.
I almost bailed on my VBAC. I almost bailed, but William came out anyway, and he was like, "No, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right now." Like almost in the middle of our, like it could have been a viral video almost. but anyway, so yes, so that is some of the things that we really love to see. We love women to share their stories. What else should we talk about with VBAC, Sandy? We're almost to our 15 minutes, like we actually are.
So with a VBAC, highly recommend that obviously you make sure you get all of the information and the sources. Also, I would highly recommend that you look into getting a doula, because doulas are really helpful during a VBAC.
Oh my God. Yes.
It's super important. And
a lot of these doulas have actually researched their own about VBAC and how to help a woman have a VBAC, and techniques like the optimal fetal positioning exercises, so they can help you do those things to build up your success rate for the VBAC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So whichever path you choose, whether it's an out of hospital birth or in hospital, a doula is such a great advocate to make sure that we stay on that path and that journey that you chose. Because like Galina said, she almost bailed on her VBAC because it is hard. VBACs, and
Because I didn't have Sandy there. That's why it would have been no question if you were there.
I'm like, get it together.
Sometimes I need that.
So, because of that, it's a lot of emotional stuff that VBACs go through, we've noticed in our time. And that's why it's so nice to have a good birth team that's going to make you, remember, not make you, but remind you of how important this was to you. And what I mean by that is, because you had a C-section before, a lot of times that's kind of like hovering over your head.
Luggage.
Even though you're fully prepared, you're totally focused and confident, there's that little part of you in the back of your mind that thinks, oh my God, what if I end up in a C-section again? And so we tell all of our moms, labor begins in the mind. And so that's super important to understand, especially when you're going through a VBAC.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Okay, so that's I could talk more about VBACs, but then you'll get bored of our episode. So again, please subscribe to our channel. We are really hoping to get this a lot of subscribers, because we love the idea that you guys want information about natural birth and all that goes along with it.
And keep sending us questions.
Yeah, we need it.
We love to talk about things that moms want to know about. And so I'm going to add all the links that we talked about in the description so that you guys can look for yourself and do your own research. And yeah.
All right. Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.